All right, today on the pod, I can't believe it, but it is another totally loaded pod. We are doing a deep dive into nationals. Why did it move? Where is it going next year? And why was it such a cluster? Beep. We're also going to be talking about lawsuits. What? Am I being sued? Are you being sued?
Let's get somebody sued.
Hopefully not us. We're going to be talking about the big winners and losers from the week. And of course, we cannot ignore what we're calling Deflection Gate. PPA Hertz Gold Cup, change in deflection standards on the fly from 50 to 42. Just more typical PPA rule changing business. All right, K-Dubs.
This pickleball life. I'm K-Dubs and Jelly Bee is my wife. She's the pro and I've got the filler. She's sweet to me, but on the court she's a killer. Unadulterated and efficiently bringing you the best and worst things in PB. Tell your friends and stay for another. And no one loves us more than your mother. One thing's for sure, one hit and you're addicted. Grab a pile, grab a court, don't resist it. So click subscribe, let's go, let's get cracking. Theme song done, let's go, let's get laughing. This pickleball life.
Welcome to your favorite pickleball podcast disguised as an investigative journalist podcast with me, K-Dubs, aka Kristen Walla, founder of PB Gods and Duper 4.092. No, my duper hasn't changed, but they added back the third digit.
And I'm your girl, Jill Braverman, aka Jilly B, pro pickleball player, former tech CEO, and startup founder, and most importantly, co-host of this podcast.
The most important thing we've done this year.
Yeah, maybe. Actually, I don't know if you meant that as a joke, but
I kind of meant that as like a both and.
A half joke. I like it.
Remember when I had to drag you into podcasting?
That's true.
Oh, man.
So it's pod 28.
So let's be great.
Full. Happy Thanksgiving.
Woo! Did you see what we did there?
See what we did there? Happy Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for you.
Grateful for you. I'm grateful for pickleball.
My Dragon Slayer.
Hey, without pickleball, we'd have nothing to talk about.
My Truth Teller.
What would we be talking? Golf?
Oh, dear God. Let's never, ever, ever not talk about pickleball then. Tennis?
Now introducing our next pod, Why You Suck at Golf.
All right. Before we get into it, we have a rainstorm giveaway. That is right. All you have to do is put in the comments, make it rain. We won't even punish you if you spell rain wrong. We're going to send
any form. R-A-N-E. We'll take it. Talking to you, Millie.
We're going to be sending one of each flavor. That's right. That's 4 cases to one lucky winner. So just drop in the comments, make it rain.
That's like caffeination for 2 months.
And you're not going to want, or for me, 2 years, you're not going to want to miss next week's pod. That's right. We are going to be doing a holiday must list. So shopping for that special person in your life, you cannot miss these holiday musts. And by the way, we're going to be giving away the largest pod giveaway we've ever done. We're going to be giving away 9 out of 10 of these holiday musts. So do not miss next week.
I'm excited. I might have to apply for a few. So, just wanted to give a quick shout out. Hope you enjoyed our theme song today. Some other fellow podcasters were giving us a little shade, and by us, I mean me, since I wrote, created, and sang/rapped our theme song. But I will take it. I like the shade. Bring it on. And that was our fellow Sorry Not Sorry podcaster, and it was all good because everything that followed after he danced to our theme song was basically to echo everything we've been talking about that is so at once important and at once unbelievable. So feel free to check out the Sorry Not Sorry pod from last week if you want to hear a different take on the same topic. It's not just us out here.
Yep. And I think it's important to bring back that Pickleball is Joy, our hats,
absolutely,
and apparel on pbgods.com. And it is Thanksgiving week, which means something very different for our family than perhaps yours. It means Alaskan King crab legs and eggplant parmesan. That's right. That is what we do every Wednesday.
Are we going to get bougie shamed?
Bougie
for our
shame?
king crab legs.
Actually, this year we're not doing.
I know, we
king
cut the crab legs.
We did cut the crab legs, so
Yeah,
it's
I
just
brought something
eggplant
different for
parm.
Thanksgiving, a cold.
Yeah, Chris is not
So if I
feeling well.
sound a little bit like Phoebe Buffet today with my smelly cat voice, that is why.
But there will be eggplant parmesan, and yeah, we hope everyone has an awesome Thanksgiving week. And I'm feeling grateful. Do you know what I'm feeling grateful for?
For what?
I'm feeling grateful for this little thing we call free speech. That's right. I had 2 pro players confirm that they overheard the COO of the PPA Tour, Connor Ogden, speaking with Lee Waters, Anna Lee Waters' mother, at the PPA Hertz Gold Cup over the weekend, that they were going to bring a slander lawsuit against us. And I can see how when you blend truth and lies so much in your daily life, that you can get those things confused. But I actually Googled this. I said, hey, Google, can you sue someone for slander if they are speaking the truth? And Google spit out, no.
And that's a big N and an O.
In absolute defense to an action for defamation is telling the truth. I didn't even have to use Chat GPT. I could just use Google to understand that, no, if you're telling the truth, you can't be sued. And that's exactly what we've done. And power to truth, and we're going to keep telling the truth.
Truth to power, power to truth. Yeah, and it just does, once again, point to the way that this entity operates and what works. You know, people do what they do because it's worked in the past. And that's why we will not be silenced. But do you want to remind our listeners what really we stand for in this podcast? I mean, you kind of hinted at it right there, but what makes us different?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to a sponsor the other day, and they said, after I listen to your podcast, I feel like I learned and I feel good about myself. And I don't always feel that way listening to podcasts that just throw shade all day long and sling mud. And I end up feeling bad about myself after listening to those. So we do a lot of research, especially these past 2-3 episodes, especially this past week. And there has been just an absolute outpouring of support from players, from listeners, from sponsors,
Employees, from refs, from sponsors, from players.
Sponsors of the PPA Tour, I mean, to share their experiences with us. And, you know, we're not investigative journalists, and it's been a lot. It's been a lot of heavy stories that we've received, and we're going to do our best to bring some of those to light. Next week's pod is going to be very heavy with one particular story, and we're going to touch on a little bit of what we've heard today as well.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys can enjoy both sides of it, because it's important to spread positivity, but it's also important to understand why we are so drawn to negativity. And I talk about this a lot if you know me, but we've been genetically engineered to want to gossip. Gossip is important, and shame are important, right? They get a bad rap because, you know, we don't want to talk about people behind their backs. But the truth is, the reason that we gossip is that it's important when you're on the prairie in a band of 100 humans to survive against all the other animals and humans, that you know who you can trust and who you can't. So gossip is our way of making sure that we know who can't be trusted. And shame is our way of making sure that the collective group can oust the bad eggs. So it's important that we don't abuse that genetic predisposition towards the negativity to just become clickbait and mudsling.
Well, you talk about...
I think a lot of what you always say is, I would say this to their face.
Absolutely.
And I think if you draw that line in the sand of like, okay, if this person was sitting right in front of us,
would I repeat what I just said? And that's my gold standard is make sure whatever you're saying you would say to someone's face.
Absolutely.
And you know, you're talking about positivity, and it reminds me of a little bit of an anecdote our physical therapist told us, which is there's 2 kinds of people in the world. I always say those that take the shopping cart back and those that leave it by their car in the parking lot. And that is everything you need to know about a person. I feel like our listeners are the type of people
who brushes their teeth in the shower.
No, that's a different one. We'll talk about that one later.
But this one, courtesy of our new favorite. No, you can tell. I was just going to tee it back up. Our favorite PT extraordinaire, Vince Camby. He says there's 2 kinds of people in the world. those who walk into a barn and see a pile of horse shit say, who's going to clean this up? And those who say,
wow, we got a pony.
So
ask
comment
yourself,
below, are you the pony or are you the
You're going to have to bleep that.
Am I?
Yes.
I don't know. I think that that falls under a different category.
No.
Okay, I'll bleep it.
All right, going from a positive to a negative, let's talk about the PPA Hertz Gold Cup from the weekend. I had 2 sources alert me to the fact that the deflection testing standards were changed mid-tournament. I'm going to repeat that one more time for everyone to really understand. Finally, the PPA implemented MLP PPL testing.
Yay,
so it seemed.
And then you even called it. You were like, let's see how this goes.
I tweeted how interesting that Anna Lee Waters pulled out of singles, I think for the first time this year. I have to check that. So
yeah, there were. I think there was another time she didn't play, but she wasn't signed up and then pulled out.
Right. So pulls out the night before,
claiming a knee injury.
Coincidentally, right when this PPL testing is announced, and then you see Irina Tereshchenko lose 0-11, down 0-2, and pull a classic withdraw. Still don't have an explanation for that. So we do know testing occurred Thursday morning. We know that. Somewhere, sometime, so many paddles were failing that the testing standard for deflection, which is 50, was changed. It was lowered to 42, which at that point, you may as well not have testing. I called this, and it doesn't make me happy to have called it. The night before, when I found out the PPL was going to be present, I did everything in my power to warn the PPL guys that something like this was going to happen. And I realized they weren't sending out the A team. They weren't sending out Gary and Curtis, the 2 guys that run the show. They were sending out engineers. And I was like, I told the guys, I said, they're going to get bullied. They're going to get bullied. Something is going to happen. I thought you were going to be there. And they said, no, we know it's PPL. We are super above board. I had a bunch of people tell me they're super above board. You don't have to be below board to get bullied. And I think it should also be noted, like, there's nothing in the rules that say privately held tour just can't change the rules mid-tournament.
As clearly exhibited. Yeah, and again, it could be fine in certain circumstances, right? They could make the rules whatever they want, but it is a very different thing to say we're instituting the same testing as at MLP PPL to then test, then change it mid-tournament. That, I mean, just speaks volumes. We don't even need to get into it. I think anyone who's listening to this understood.
So I did take a moment to write Connor Pardoe and Carl Schmitz. Hi, Carl, on Friday at 1:04 p.m. Hi, Carl and Connor. What a positive step forward for PPA to use PPL. Congrats. There hasn't been as many failures as MLP, so I'm curious what guidelines were used for this event. Can you let me know, was it 50? And at that point, I had already known from 2 different sources that the testing standard had changed. But I wanted to give them an opportunity to clear the air, to speak their truth. No response. Crickets. Which I should not be surprised about. But you got to keep putting these things in writing, and you got to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
It's amazing that Carl, who's supposed to be this independent third party, doesn't respond, and has even told me in the past I've been told not to respond to you.
Yeah.
It's like, can nobody just like
think for themselves?
Stand up for what's right? Speak their truth?
Seriously. What is that quote about the like stand by and watch kind of evils?
Well, on that topic, Kristen, I think that's a nice segue into this notion of a player collective. Look, we know that there's no player union right now, but that doesn't mean collective bargaining doesn't exist. So players, I'm speaking directly to you right now. If you don't like the way you're being treated, if you don't like what you're seeing and what's coming to light, and you don't stand up right now and speak your truth, you cannot complain about what happens in the future, what happens next year. We have a moment in time right now where we're going to be asked very soon to an addendum to our contracts, to take a pay cut, to do X, Y, and Z. That's called leverage. This moment in time is leverage. And if we come together as a collective and leverage collective bargaining, we can drain the swamp, okay? We can say, look, we're only going to take a pay cut if. We're only going to sign addendum to our agreements if you drain the swamp, if heads roll. We want ethical, transparent, accountable, and fair leadership for the years to come in the sport.
And we want a seat in the room. We want to say.
Yep.
We want a check with us first, and we'll see if we agree. You know, at the end of the day, it's all about being on the same page. This is not like any one person trying to get punished or any one person trying to get favored. It's all about equality and transparency, and who wouldn't want that? That's the thing you have to keep asking.
We're not victims. You don't have to be a victim. You can stand together. You can share your story. We can work together as a collective. Just think about that.
Not everyone has to be a whistleblower.
No.
Just get on the bandwagon. Yeah. So, where does that leave us? Grateful?
Grateful. Still grateful.
Yeah. Grateful for our listeners. Grateful for a place to play. Grateful for a sport we love.
And hopeful, by the way. Very, very hopeful.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of what we've done, and I can't echo it enough. Like, we will not be silenced. Keep the information coming. We've appreciated everyone who's reached out with their stories, and yeah, we're happy to listen and keep anyone anonymous, but thispblife@gmail.com.
Write us. Reach out to us.
Reach us.
We're going to talk about nationals next. That was something our listeners really wanted to learn about. Mm-hmm. Why did it move? Where is it going? And how is it such a bleep storm? But first, little note from our sponsor, Vega 40 Neo Slick outdoor and indoor pickleballs. I've been playing these balls now for 3 months, and I swear I still have some balls that I'm playing with that have not cracked. And guess what? They're $1.75 a ball on Amazon right now. Go and get some balls. You know that you step on the court and you never have a ball. You know that. I'm looking at you. Okay? I'm looking at you.
Get your balls.
Get your ball on.
Pink or neon green.
And that's Vega 40. All right, so let's talk about nationals.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Nationals. It all comes back. We can't escape Dallas. We thought we left. But we keep coming back. So
let's tackle, why did nationals move in the first place? Okay. So the contract was ending with Desert Champions. That's the management company for IWTG, Indian Wells Tennis Gardens. It was a pretty raw contract for USA Pickleball in a few ways, primarily around sponsorship splits. So whether they brought in sponsors or Desert Champions brought in sponsors, it was a raw split. I don't know exactly what the number was, but it wasn't very good.
So this is last year and the years prior.
Yep.
It's a great venue, but it's an expensive venue.
Right. And
it's a little bit too big for our britches.
And it leads to point number 2. IWTG's, it's just hard to work with. So that center, it's the crown jewel of tennis in California. It doesn't want pickleball, and people don't understand this, but guess what? We live
20 steps
from the tennis gardens. So we have a little bit inside scoop here. I've spoken with the director there, and they have over 500 tennis members. It is a super active tennis membership, and in season, all 2,408 of those courts are actually full of tennis players.
I know.
Which I still haven't seen.
I gotta see that to believe
tennis
that. Membership. It's like the creepy question the guy now asks you, are you sexually active? Are your courts active tennis players? Does that mean you have like one tennis player per hour on at least one court?
Okay, look, I'm drinking the beer. You're not. Like, I'm going to have to bleep so much of you this pod. So people are so assumptive that, like, the tennis gardens must love pickleball, and there's going to be this big, vibrant pickleball community built there one day, when that's just not the case. In fact, the director informed me if they build pickleball, I mean, they won't even put temp lines down, okay? So if they're going to build pickleball, it's going to be on land that they own in a completely separate section, like kind of near where the pro shop is, where if you're looking at the pro shop door, back and to the left. If I was smart enough, I'd probably use words like south and east, but yeah, it's somewhere that way, somewhere over
left
there.
And right.
Yeah, left
Up
and right,
down.
up, down. I mean, like, you know, one other point that validates this is I think it's like the night nationals ends, they're out there like putting everything
Painting
back
back
to
to
tennis. Yeah, like they just
tennis. Yeah.
cannot wait. So my point is it was probably like mutual also to make a change. And then third is really, from what I understand from my sources, Robert Quicksilver, you know, chairman of the board of USA Pickleball and the board. I think he'd been getting worked on pretty darn good by Tom Dundon. You know, their mutual acquaintances see each other in Aspen. And I think they really convinced him, and we'll talk more about this later, but USA Pickleball is really just run by the board. It's probably a big reason that the previous CEO, Stu Upson, left. I mean, how do you affect any meaningful change when your board is essentially running the
babysitter.
show, your babysitter?
Yeah.
So there was supposed to be, and here's where things get really sticky for USA Pickleball. There was supposed to be, as there is in these things, a bidding process, okay, for nationals.
Yeah. Okay. We need a new home.
We need
Where
a new
should
home.
we go? Who wants us?
Exactly. And my sources have said that they never saw that. They don't believe a bidding process took place. It was just rushed through by Robert and the board to do this with the PPA. Where's the bid sheet? Nobody knows. And so my sources, right, they say that everything that was a failure regarding nationals ultimately points back to the board. We have been amassing some quotes about nationals. One person said, I've been in third world countries that were less of a mess. I have to imagine that has to do with the bathroom or maybe the rainy night.
Yeah, there was mud and there was bathrooms and there was no toilet paper. You do the math. Yeah, I've heard from basically, I think 11 out of 12 people I probably asked this of if they would go back again. And 11 out of 12 said, I did not have a good time. I would never again. Not
So-
till it comes back to Indian Wells.
So that's why it moved. Now let's talk about why it was such a mess. Okay? And then we'll talk about
Their response.
their response at the very end. Ruck Solar Packs. Do you have someone in your life who's impossible to shop for? The Ruck Solar Pack is definitely our favorite pickleball bag. It's also sleek, fits your laptop, your paddles. You can visit ruckpack.com. That's RUKPACK.com. You can use code JILLYB for 15% off your next order. So you had a confluence of three entities, right? You've got the PPA, who's purporting to be this like leader in event operations. You've got USA Pickleball run, essentially effectively Don Pabin as the tournament director, and we'll talk about him at length in this podcast and future podcasts. And then you've got invited clubs. So you've got these three different organizations, these three different leadership teams, and something that kept coming back from our sources over and over was, you know, where was the overall project management tools here? Like if there was a project management sheet, nobody at USA Pickleball saw that. So maybe there probably was one, considering PPA does event ops, but essentially Don Pabin as a tournament director was able to meet expectations at Indian Wells because it's Indian Wells. They are like, that is such a finely tuned machine. And that's another reason it makes it hard to work with them. It's all their staff. Like every door has a security guard. Every table, every entrance has a volunteer. Like it's just this extraordinarily well-run, well-oiled machine. So I think it's easy
You
to
don't
be.
do any of the hiring.
Yeah, it's easy. Exactly.
training.
It's easy to be a great tournament director when you've got this partner of desert champions who, I mean, if you've ever been to the BNP, that is a professionally run event.
Yeah.
So now you've got, you know, Don Pabin trying to manage these three disparate entities, and that's how you end up without toilet paper, right?
Yeah. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
And when you're
And not enough
pampered,
people actually doing a job.
well, when you're pampered at Indian Wells, do you have to think about enough water for the players to drink? Do you have to think about hand soap in the bathrooms? Do you have to think about enough bathrooms, period?
Yeah, built-in bathrooms.
I heard that many USA Pickleball employees who were asking questions were told in not so many words, keep your mouth shut. PPA has done this 20 times. And what's interesting about that is it's a similar response I heard to what the MLP team was told when they were asking questions about MLP Dallas, which I think we all know was a total cluster. So let's talk a little bit about the statement USA Pickleball release, and then let's talk about where is Nationals going to be next year.
Yeah, so I was able to track down a little bit of a kind of, not an apology, but a pseudo mea culpa on Sports Travel magazine. And this is from Mike Neely, USA Pickleball Chief Executive Officer. Through the years of expertise hosting world-class events like our national championship, we understand that we must hold ourselves to a certain standard and quality of both player and fan experience. We recognize this year's national championships did not meet that standard and strongly value our community's feedback. Based upon such feedback, we look forward to sharing more details about our upcoming plans for nationals, and we strive to provide all players with the best experience possible. So, it wasn't. That's basically all they're saying, is it wasn't what we wanted it to be. So,
well, to give your crown jewel away to an entity that is now advertising in direct competition to your dates for next year is fascinating. So let's talk about where will Nationals be next year. So my understanding was it was a 2-year contract with the PPA for Nationals. Then I heard it was a 1 year with a 1 year extension if USA Pickleball so choose. So I have it on good authority that it will not be returning to Dallas. And I've heard from sources that it will be at the Pure facility that you've probably seen some announcements about. That's going to be the new USAP National Training Center. It's going to have 17,406 courts. No, I'm just
but
kidding.
There will be a bidding process.
And I think that's in Phoenix. It's in Arizona, obviously, but I think the city is Phoenix. But what's interesting is, USA Pickleball let a fox into the henhouse because now you've got the PPA with Pickleball Boulevard trademark. They own Picklepalooza, and they've got an event on the calendar, and on the pro calendar, guess what it says? It doesn't say Pickleball Boulevard, it says Nationals.
Yeah, so on
they're selling tickets for it.
It says, where did I put that? Oh yeah, if you go to the PPA website, they're selling $45 tickets to save your spot at Pickleball Championships. Pickleball Championships, which is like whatever, okay. And then if you click that link, it leads you to the pickleballbrackets.com registration page where it says register for Pickleball Boulevard. So either way, it's a non-refundable contribution to your future registration for whatever that event may be.
Wow.
So I guess they'll just never miss an opportunity to get money up front.
Who's going to pay for that drone show?
Yeah, seriously.
I think the $1 million question is actually, guys, will there be actual handicap parking next year at Nationals, or should I say Pickleball Boulevard, or will more spots be given to the RV of Annalee Waters?
That is the $1 million question. Too funny. Where does that leave us in the relationship of PPA and USAP? Will we ever see pros from the PPA playing Nationals again?
Not if there's Pickleball Boulevard at the same time. Same exact weekend.
Oh my gosh. Did you want to?
But I think this is a prime example of USA Pickleball getting outmaneuvered by Tom Dundon. I just, unfortunately, it's a tale as old as time in pickleball right now. And I think you wrote in here Dundonverse.
You wrote Dundonverse. I was waiting for you to tee me up my joke.
Okay, I'm teeing it up. Dundonverse.
So yeah, they were outmaneuvered by Tom and his Dundonverse, and I saw that in our notes, and I was like, Dundonverse? That sounds like a scary ride at Disneyland. Do you know the theme song to Dundonverse? Dun 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 dun.
Very good. That's very, very good.
Getting really off my game. Blame the cold.
But no, I think the PPA does an excellent job of showing you or telling you a story where, everything can be a win-win, right? But there is no win-win in the Dundon verse. There's just him winning.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think that's what happened with Nationals. I think they won. And USAP's got a lot of egg on their face.
Yeah. And there's just been a lot of finger pointing back and forth between the two organizations, PPA and USAP. But ultimately, I just feel bad for everyone who experienced that. But, it's obviously it's a big job. I'm not saying it's easy. But there are some definite priorities that got overlapped. I kept coming back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like shelter, water, food. At the other end, you've got like aspiring your dreams. They got a little too far towards the pointy end and forgot the base. Anyway, so I think that's enough probably on Nationals. It's kind of been beaten to a pulp, but I hope that clears up why we ended up where we did.
Yep.
And, hopefully this is the instigation of some things becoming better.
Well, the last thing on Nationals that we didn't touch on, or I should say we briefly touched on last episode, was the kerfuffle. Nailed it. Don't ask me to spell it. Was Federico Stacksrud filing a police report after a physical altercation with AJ Kohler. I don't know what the altercation was over. I feel like it must have been
confirmed that it was over what Federico said to Annalie on the court.
You have to assume that.
I
have
told
not
that
had
by
it.
Multiple sources.
Okay, so Federico goes to file a police report and is brought in to Dundon's office, and Tom Dundon essentially says, again, from what we have been told, okay, if you do that, you're off my tour. If you file that police report, you're off my tour.
There you have it. That's how they operate.
And
just a regular day at the office.
Well, I think that there is a scary, habit forming of MLP players receiving retribution, which we all thought there would be, and PPA players not, right? If AJ assaulted Federico and Pickleball.com is going out of their way to change the story on Instagram, which, by the way, if you didn't know this, Pickleball.com, all spelled out on Instagram, is Connor Pardoe's attempt at a publicity
propaganda
puppetry.
The PPPPP.
Because that is fully owned by PPA and Dundon Capital Partner entities. The Dundonverse, as we will say.
Someone should grab that handle.
So they're changing the story, they're controlling the narrative, and that's exactly what they want to do. When there's all this bad press, they want a way to control the narrative. So we saw that with the AJ Kohler story being rectified. Mm-hmm. Or changed, I should say.
Yeah, we talked about that last pod where they posted that he was DQ'd and then they posted that he withdrew, basically.
And then what we learned about Rafa Hewitt was, you might remember on the last podcast we read a text we received from Chris Patrick from the PPA that said, we have a zero tolerance policy for abuse of our staff. And we thought, we didn't know who that was. And we later find out it was Rafa Hewitt, according to our sources, having what sounds like a pretty benign conversation with one of the player reps, like maybe a little heated. All the players' nerves were super frayed considering we were all being given schedules to go off at 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
And so he was also brought into Dundon's office.
And the text from Chris made it sound like someone was like running around yelling at volunteers and being rude for no reason. But what it sounds like was he was asking questions of the person he's supposed to ask questions of.
Correct.
Who is there for the players.
Yeah, and then all of a
So-
sudden you're being pulled into the top brass's headquarters and being
Intimidated.
told, yeah, you could be off my tour. And again, that's what we've heard from our sources.
So, all that. What a big event, indeed. So, yeah, the year's coming to a close. We're going to get into what's left of the pickleball universe. But do you want to talk about BEMER for a sec?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was talking to Jill the other day when someone was asking what the BEMER was at our house, and I was like, man, this has got to be the most important recovery device we've ever owned. Like, how would you feel, Jill, if I told you the BEMER stopped working or you could never use it again?
I don't know. I'd say I'm going to take a second mortgage out on my house and buy a supply.
Yeah, so it's really cool. Obviously, it is an elite device at an elite price, but they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you've been thinking, wow, that sounds interesting, and you've been hearing us talk about how much it's improved all of our healing and all of our feeling, basically you have to remember that we are running around with waste in our bodies, and the way that we get rid of that waste is largely through blood flow. So the BEMER is basically just a pumping mechanism to get that waste out and get the blood flowing correctly. So the very opposite end, basically, of people who end up needing your brother-in-law to go in and put stents and bypasses in. We want to get that blood flowing. So BEMER, really cool device, PEMF device. So reach out via email if you have any questions about that, or click the link in our description. But that's thispblife@gmail.com. Loving the BEMER. So we got to talk about winners and losers from this week.
Winners and losers.
Oh man, how about this winner? Big congrats to my boy, my MLP
Big
partner,
Papi.
Big Poppy, Jaume Martinez Vic, and Wyatt Stone. Young stallion, young blood. Let's go. Taking down the Johns brothers. So bummed it wasn't streamed, and so not surprised you guys were able to do it. Congratulations.
Absolutely. He is a man on the rise. We always knew he had it in him.
I remember-
no matter what anyone else thought, he was a single specialist, but
No, we knew better.
we could see it.
And it's so fun for me because I remember playing Wyatt Stone and Georgia Johnson 2 years ago with Zane Navratil at the PPA Championships in Las Vegas. And I remember Wyatt had a couple forehand volleys that he slapped so hard. I remember thinking if it didn't hit the top of the net, it's probably would have taken my eye out. Like, and that
He's
was
got
2
power.
years ago.
Yeah.
And he was 16 at the time, 17 at the time. So,
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh my gosh, this Georgia Johnson girl, she's going to be outrageously good. So it's fun to see that coming to fruition.
For sure. And I remember when we first got introduced to the idea of Jaume, and someone was like talking about how short he was. And I was like, wow, I had never seen him up close. I didn't even realize he was short because he's so fast. He covers so much court. Like, it never dawned on me, like, oh, look at that short guy. And he has such incredible athleticism. I think
I
at
was
one
the
point
tallest
he
person on my
jumped.
MLP team.
You really were. It's not even a joke. He jumped for an overhead, and I swear to God, he jumped like higher than his chest.
Got vertical.
He'd probably be a good snowboarder. So anyway, big winner there. They did not end up making it to the finals, but they cleared the pathway. So everyone should be grateful to Jaume and Wyatt. But another big winner is everyone who played women's singles this week.
Correct.
And did not have to face Annalie Waters, who pulled out last minute as we discussed. Any other winners and losers you wanna talk
Well,
about? I mean, we got into the PPL testing, pseudo winning and then losing all over again.
Yeah, I agree. I think winter PPL testing, finally getting some validation, finally getting to work with the PPA, but also losing because you had your own standards manipulated before your eyes. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. Testing's a good thing.
We're moving somewhere.
We're moving
I hope
somewhere, hopefully not backwards.
Yeah.
One loser, USA Pickleball, Nationals. I think that is such egg on their face. And winner there, PPA. Got invited clubs to invest millions of dollars into building a facility that the PPA can then have Pickleball Boulevard on, sell millions of dollars of sponsorship and sponsorable assets, and kind of create this massive marquee event. I mean, another outmaneuvering by Dundon. They win.
Yeah.
They win. USAP loses. That's fact.
So, you ready for Dear Julie B?
Yeah, this is a crazy question.
Okay. And this actually was a question we got asked by multiple people this week, so we felt like it was a good Dear Julie B, even though it is not about pickleball advice. Dear Julie B, do you think that the PPA or MLP would declare bankruptcy to avoid paying all the player contracts next year?
Yeah, this is something Zane and Thomas Shields talked about really early on in their podcast. And I think it's a really fascinating question, and I want to do it justice. So here we go. If Tom Dundon could have, he would have bankrupted the PPA, but he made a critical error. He added it to his Pickleball Top Co umbrella of pickleballbrackets.com, Pickleball Central, the retail site, and pickleballtournaments.com. So he can't. He would have loved to. And so now the question becomes, well, do we merge the two companies and bankrupt immediately on January 1st the new co? And that washes away $25 million of player salary obligations. How many millions?
Yeah, I mean, we'll never know exactly, but
we can guess.
Definitely between 10 and 40.
Okay, well, it's a large. We should try and
it's
bring.
It's probably like 12 to 20 a year.
Yeah, I'm talking about per.
3.
Yeah, I'm talking about per year. So that's attractive, right? Like, you have to think about how attractive that is. Merge these two entities, bankrupt it, player salaries go away. But the problem with that is you don't know who's going to show up and want to buy that out of bankruptcy. I mean, it could be Saudi Arabia, it could be, live golf, live pickleball. Like, you don't know. And we have, on super good authority, there has been in that part of the world immense interest in a pro pickleball league.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately that is way too risky to think that you could get outbid on this asset that you were hoping to just pick up for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, well, especially in a world where it's like, is it pre-merger, is it post-merger? But just give us the layman's understanding for people who are like me and maybe don't really understand what bankruptcy means. Like, what happens to the existing company? It's just sort of up for grabs.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I think it goes into receivership, right? And then anyone can essentially bid on it, but it erases the future debt, right? Those player contracts are erased.
So it's basically any future outstanding, like, you owe me.
Gone. So the debtor, so it's kind of like a mortgage in the sense that your bank's in first position, right? So the people that are going to be in first and second, third position are going to be the people that are already owed money, not the players who are owed money in the future.
They're going to be the things that, like the video board guys or whatever they owe, for actual products or services.
I think they own their own video boards, but
right.
Production.
But I'm just saying, like,
crews.
something that already is
transpired.
Yep. Under their thumb. So very interesting.
It is.
I don't know. It is hard to imagine either world. Like, they both seem hard to imagine to me that all these player contracts will be honored or that they'll go through bankruptcy. So,
well,
we're going to find out.
And there's a third option. Contracts renegotiated. Do not forget what I said earlier on in this pod. Collective bargaining. We've already proven, right, that there is huge power in these player blocks. We saw that with top-notch management companies' book of business when they were able to swing, 12-plus marquee players, which ultimately was kind of actually not at the advantage of the players, to be totally honest. But we saw this with the Johnson 5, and there is power in blocks. Do not forget that. Awesome. Before we sign off, I want to remind everyone Black Friday is coming up and Cyber Monday. Groovin', your girls paddle. is having a sale on thermoformed paddles. If you have not yet started playing a raw carbon fiber unibody thermoformed paddle, what are you waiting for? Do you want to hit hard? Do you want to spin the ball like crazy? Do you want to beat Sally and Johnny? This is the paddle for you. So all move-in paddles are on sale from $179 to $159 with the code JillyB. That's going to bring it down even more. So head to groovin.co for all sorts of sales.
Get your holiday shopping done. What better gift? So, should we finish with a little bit of the Hustler news?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is one more event or two more events in the year, even though it so feels like it's over right now. We've got MLP San Clemente, and we have the finals, of course, the PPA finals. So super interesting. Yeah, I am not part of the three teams. Three teams.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So the premier teams that are going, there's 4, I believe, and they're straight down the board by the list of how they've done in the first 2 events of the second season. But for Challenger, for some reason, instead of it being the top 3 teams, which would have been SoCal, BLQK, and Vegas, it's SoCal, BLQK, and St. Louis, who had the exact same number of points as you, but were, at least, they were 4.1 percentage ahead of you. But really, it's Vegas and the Pandas that are kind of getting the boot here for some reason, when they have one more point.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Yeah, my understanding was the selection of the Challenger teams was more like political and financial than it was standings. So I don't even know what that means, to be totally candid with you. Like, I don't know if that means those teams are paying to be there. I don't know. There's questions I want to ask and I can't ask, and then there's some things
obviously they felt like they didn't have room for 6 teams, which would have been pretty sensical, because the top 6 teams are like clearly far and away ahead of the bottom 6 teams, but between 6th and 2nd was just 2 points, total event points. So we won't be there, but all's well, and looking forward to 2024. It's going to be a big year for pickleball. And every time we think the pickleball universe can't get any crazier, it does.
Oh my gosh. We talked a little bit about at the beginning of the podcast that there's been this influx of stories coming in from former PPA and current sponsors, from employees, from players, from fans, from you name it. And right, we're not investigative journalists, but some of these stories have been extremely heavy, and we have chosen one story to focus on next week. And it's heavy, it's heavy, but it involves active litigation that was filed very recently against not one, but 2 major pickleball organizations. It involves sexual abuse, sexual harassment, retaliation, unfair firing, past due wages owed, and a variety of other allegations that are very, very serious. And we are going to be doing a deep dive into that next week, telling you who the organizations are, who are the named men in the suit. And this might be pickleball's Me Too movement, and we are going to be exposing the Harvey Weinstein of pickleball.
So be sure to check that out next week. And thanks for listening. Don't forget,
pickleball is joy.
Don't let anyone tell you differently.
This Pickleball Life is a Tomahawk production, 100% organic, self-made, and homegrown. Music by K-Dubs, editing by K-Dubs and Jilly B. Check out pbgods.com and use code PBLifers for 10% off your next order. Do you have a question for Jilly B? Email us at thispblife@gmail.com to be included in future episodes. Don't forget to click subscribe.
This Pickleball Life.